Hi everyone, my name is Neville. In this episode I'm going to be talking about the Canon EF converter, which I spoke about in a previous episode where I compared two cameras, the Fuji X-T30 and the Canon M6 Mark II. So let's have a look and see what the results are. Just having a look again at the two cameras that we compared last time, the Fuji X-T30 and the Canon M6 Mark II. And here I spoke about the Canon M6 Mark II that can take this extra adapter called the EF adapter. And in doing so, I chose three lenses within a certain budget. I don't want to move too far out of the kit budget. So let's have a look at these lenses that I've chosen. The first one is the 28mm f1.8 lens. It's an EF lens. Second is an EFS lens used on the APS-C sensor cameras from Canon. And this is the EFS 18 to 135mm lens. And then also looking at the 100mm f2.8 macro lens. Here we can see them together. And I'm going to show you some images now taken on these three lenses and how they compare to the 15-45 kit lens that is on this camera. As I've done previously, here is a contact sheet to give you an indication of the type of images that I took to be able to compare these lenses with the EF converter. On the first image we have a vase or a vase with eucalyptus leaves in it. Just before I explain the images, just note that on the left hand side you'll see an orange border around the image, and this will indicate that this is taken with the 15 to 45mm kit lens that comes standard with the M6 Mark II. Going in at 100%, you can look at the image and you can see on the left hand side I've used the 18 to 135mm EFS lens. This lens, as I've mentioned, comes with the APS-C sensor cameras, and it's a great lens to work with and to start with. You can immediately see there is a difference in the quality and the sharpness of the image, and also if we look into the shadow areas, you can see that this lens is holding a lot more shadow detail. Coming to a little bit of a landscape image, similar to the one I've done in the previous episode, you'll see here going in at 100%, the 18 to 135mm lens does have a lot more crispness to the image. Take a look at the leaves, take a look at the rockery on the mountain, and you'll see it's just that little bit more sharper, and you'll see that here again in the foliage from the trees in the foreground. The 18 to 135 lens does perform better in this circumstance. Here I've done something a little bit different. You'll see that there is a blue border around one of the images, and this is indicating that this photograph was taken with the Fuji X-T30 and the kit lens, which is the 18 to 55mm lens. Going in at 100%, you'll see here that the Fuji camera on the middle image has done a better job in this particular photograph. You can see that on the bark, you can see that on the foliage. Going into a shadow area of the image, take a look in the shadow detail, and you've got a lot more texture, and you can see more of the branches on the Fuji image than you can with either of the Canon lenses. Something that was a bit of a surprise for me was going into the top right hand corner of the image. On the 15 to 45mm lens, you'll see there's a little bit of fringing and it's a little bit softer. On the Fuji, it's a little bit crisper, slight fringing still, but with the 18 to 135mm lens, there was quite a lot of fringing, which you can see on the branches. And I'm not quite sure why it was doing this, other than perhaps the amount of glass in the lens and the type of the conditions of the lighting, etc. So let's have a look at some other images and see what we can find out. Over here I've got a wreath taken, and again you'll see the blue border for the Fuji image. Going in closer, just comparing the two Canon lenses with each other, you'll see the 15-45 seems a little bit off, a little bit fuzzy, and the 18 to 135 millimeters seems to be a lot sharper and crisper, and making the Fuji photograph also at 100%. You'll see there's not much in it between this 18 to 55 millimeter lens on this particular image and also the 18 to 135 EFS lens. They seem to be quite close to each other. However, when I go into the shadow area of the image, you'll see that the 1855 of the Fuji does seem to hold a lot more shadow detail, and that was a good surprise for me, because if you remember previously in the other episode, some of the shadow detail was lost on the Fuji as opposed to the Canon camera. Here I've decided to bring in 4 lenses. 3 of them are Canon, and of course the one in the blue border is the Fuji. Going in closer, this is now at 100%. You can see on the bottom left hand side, that seems to be the image that I'm drawn to the most, and this is with the EFS 18 to 135 millimeter lens. You'll also see I've added the 28 millimeter f1.8 lens, which is on the bottom right. It seems to be okay, it's doing a good job, and remember I'm using this adapter to be able to put these 2 lenses on. The Fuji also not doing a bad job, 15 to 45 EFM lens, slightly soft. You can see that again here, if you're looking at the rabbit, and again here, you'll see on the bottom left hand corner, the Fuji does not quite match up to what the 18 to 135 is doing on this particular image. I decided to go do a broader landscape image and see what the quality is going to be on that larger scale. Firstly, the 18 to 135 millimeter lens, which is on your right hand side. At normal viewing distance, everything seems to be fine, and at 100% everything seems to be fine, and the lenses seem to function quite similarly, giving a very similar result. However, I did see something, and I'm going to take the image now to 200%. At 200%, take a look at the 15 to 45 millimeter EFM lens. There seems to be a lot of digital artifacts. That's what I'm calling it. I'm not sure if it's the right terminology, but let's stick with that for now, digital artifacts. And you'll see that there seems to be a lot more, and I think this is to do with the quality of glass not being able to match up to the size of the chip inside the M6 Mark II. The 18 to 135 seems to be doing a better job here. I did want to compare this again with the Fuji camera. Let's be fair and take a look again here. You'll see that on the blue bordered image, which is the Fuji image, you'll see that the image does seem to be a little bit softer. But let's take a look at 200%. And you'll see at 200%, again, you've got that artifacts that's coming up with the 15 to 45 millimeter lens, but the Fuji 18 to 55 lens just seems to be even cleaner than what that 18 to 135 EFS lens was doing. I want to close with this section because I'm going to compare not just 2 lenses with each other, but I'm going to put 4 Canon lenses up next to each other so that we can see this together. The first is the 18 to 135 millimeter lens against that 15 to 45 EFM lens. And you can see here on this image, scaled up at 100%, both seem to be fair, both seem to be proving more or less the same. You can see here the slight difference that I'm picking up is that the 18 to 135 millimeter lens seems to be ever so slightly focused at the back rather than on the front of the flowers. And going in at 100%, you'll see that the 18 to 135 meter lens seems to be holding this area a lot better than the 15 to 45. So generally speaking, the 18 to 135 millimeter lens seems to be outperforming that 15 to 45. Having a look at bringing in the other two lenses, the 28mm f1.8, and that, remember, that is now an EF lens, and also the EF 100mm f2.8 macro lens. At 100%, you can see that the 28, the 15-45, and the 18-135 seem to be on a similar scale. Obviously, the 28mm is upscaled a little bit more, and so you will see a little bit more definition. But have a look at this 100mm. You are going in so much closer with so much detail. Let me show it to you just side by side to that 15-45 EFM lens. Again, remember, we have the adapter on, the EFM adapter. And the camera is situated at the same place on the tripod, but of course, the one lens is set at 15 and the other one is a fixed 100mm lens. Going in at full 100% detail, this is where the versatility of the EFM adapter comes in. You can change the way the camera operates, and you can change the way you think about your photography by changing your lens configuration from the standard kit. And that's what I want to leave you with. Play a little bit, look a little bit, and see what results you can get. If you like this content, please like and subscribe, and I'll see you next time.